In today's video, we're back with some NHL signings and NHL waiver news. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned, we have some NHL news to discuss today regarding some signings and as well as some NHL waiver news. Some of this is kind of within the last 24 to 48 hours here. So let's jump right in. It's going to be just a quick, short video here with a few minor updates. Now we've seen a couple of signings in the last few days regarding some NHL backup goaltenders. Getting started with Alex Stalock of the Minnesota Wild. He has signed a 3-year contract extension worth just under $800,000 per year, which is a pretty solid deal. He's been a pretty solid backup, in my opinion, for the Wild. He gets the job done when he gets in the net and gets the starts. Obviously, Dubnyk plays the bulk of the games, but I think Stalock is a good fit there. He's a Minnesota-born NHL player. Went to school in Minnesota Duluth, so he's got a lot of history in the state of Minnesota. Obviously, been a pretty solid backup for the Wild as well. So I think it's a pretty solid signing, and it's a pretty fair contract for them to be able to pay their backup goaltender under $1 million per year and get some quality starts when he gets in the net. To me, makes a lot of sense. Now, we've also saw the Washington Capitals sign their backup goaltender, Phoenix Copley, to a 3-year contract extension as well, except he's getting paid $1.1 million. Now, of course, Phoenix Copley is the only NHL player to actually hail from the North Pole. He's from North Pole, Alaska, which is a unique feature about Copley, in case you weren't aware of that. But one key thing here of both of these signings, even though they're relatively minor contracts, but teams are starting to prepare for the Seattle NHL expansion draft, which we're going to see here in a few years' time. Obviously, they're going to be getting started in the 2021 season, which is only a couple years away. We've got 2 more years after this year, so that's why a lot of these contracts are 3-year terms, so that they have that extra goaltender under contract when the expansion draft takes place that they can expose. Now, the rules are basically going to be the same as we saw when the Vegas Golden Knights entered the NHL. So they can only protect one goaltender. It makes sense that they're going to start preparing a lot of these contracts with the strategies in mind and who they can expose and not expose. They're going to need players under contract, obviously, for that time frame. So it makes sense here in these cases that these are pretty good deals for the backup goaltenders, but they may have gotten the terms they did with that strategy for Seattle in mind here. Now, of course, with the Washington Capitals, obviously they brought over Ilya Samsonov, who's playing in the American Hockey League right now. It's his first pro season in North America after coming over playing in Russia. He's kind of expected. I kind of thought he might take over as a backup goaltender as soon as next year. But so far his performance in the American Hockey League hasn't been terrible, but it's certainly a bit of a slower start. Big adjustment for him to playing in North America. So this contract allows Copley to kind of continue what he's doing in Washington. He's been having a pretty decent season. Allows them time to continue to mold Samsonov, and like I said, they can also expose Copley to the expansion draft when it comes time for that in a couple of years' time. So a couple minor signings, but with some strategy in mind is the reason, in my opinion, why they got the term that they did from those teams. The Edmonton Oilers have also signed 24-year-old Swedish defenseman Joel Persson, been playing in Sweden. A 1-year deal, $1 million for next season. Seems to have some pretty decent offensive numbers playing over in Sweden. Obviously, he went undrafted, signed with the Oilers as a free agent. So hopefully he comes over with the intent here to play with the Oilers organization next year in North America, and hopefully he'll be given an opportunity here to see what he can do. Obviously, the Oilers decor is an area of opportunity for them to get better, in my opinion, and it gives them a little bit more competition for some of their other younger defensemen like Bouchard, Bear, etc. So we'll see where these youngsters on their blue line can really fit in and help this team get better. So a decent signing, I think, for Persson and the Oilers, and we'll see if he can actually get into their roster next season. We've had some players go through the NHL waiver wire here in the past few days. They've all gone unclaimed, most of them being assigned to the minor leagues, but there are also players that you can likely keep an eye on for the NHL trade market coming up. We had the Maple Leafs put defenseman Martin Marincin through waivers. Obviously, that came after the Jake Muzzin trade. So Justin Hall's the one player who hasn't been getting much playing time, but they don't want to put through the waiver system. Obviously, they don't want to lose Hall. They're more concerned about him being snagged than Marincin. So Marincin slips further down the depth chart. Not sure if they'll be able to find a trade for him, but he's certainly a player that likely does get moved if they are able to make any other deals before the deadline. We saw the Ottawa Senators put forward Nick Paul through waivers yesterday. He has cleared as well. Youngster Rudolph Balcer has been coming up from Belleville, kind of been outplaying him, kind of taking his spot recently. Of course, Nick Paul came over from the Dallas Stars in the Jason Spezza trade a few years back. So, unfortunately, that trade for the Senators has not worked out the best. They got Alex Chiasson and Nick Paul in return, which did appear to be a pretty decent package at the time. Of course, Chiasson's having a good year in Edmonton right now, but went through a lot of struggling years between the Senators and Calgary Flames before he got there. And, of course, now Nick Paul's never really fully developed into a regular NHL player, but in my opinion, they haven't given him full opportunity either. He's only had a limited amount of playing time in a fourth-line role capacity. It's kind of hard to really show your skills. You make one mistake and you seem like you get benched or sent back down. But that is the nature of how things go for youngsters playing bottom six roles in the NHL, unfortunately. Now, we've also seen the Minnesota Wild put a few players through waivers as well. Defenseman Nate Prosser and forward JT Brown also cleared as well, so they could be assigned to the minor leagues or potentially could be, on the trade bait wire here. Oftentimes we see players go through waivers and get unclaimed and later soon after be traded. Oftentimes because other teams might have to move a contract as well to facilitate the move. So seeing a player pop up on waivers obviously gives an indication that they're available, and sometimes that leads to a trade shortly thereafter. So we'll see if any of that does. Like I said, all this is just kind of some minor news and notes. Just want to get everybody caught up here where we didn't post yesterday with all the latest news and notes around the NHL. So, of course, as always, I want to hear your comments and opinions down in the comment section. Let me know what you think of these trades. Teams are obviously starting to prepare for the NHL Seattle expansion draft coming up in a few years' time. And as we see more signings this season and beyond, we're going to see more and more strategy involved with term around many of those signings. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.